This is a demonstration on how we are going to do some actual CAD drawing. I'm going to take you through some of the tools, and I'm going to separate this tutorial into several different parts. So that way, if you have to come back and review certain tools, you can do that. So the first thing that we are going to look at is how to actually set up your part. So as you can see here, we're looking at a top view of the unmachined part, your stock, and this is just a random piece that was already preloaded into WinCam. So what I'm going to do is go up to Setup and Define Unmachined Part. So you need to define your unmachined part before you actually start any CAD work. So the reason for that is you don't want to have, let's say, just a random piece laying around and not know the size of it, because once you start your CAD drawing, you're kind of locked into that, and then you'd have to make a bunch of changes. So anyway, you want to figure out what the size of your part is. So we've got a couple different parts we use in the lab. What I'm going to do is set it up to be a 3 by 1.5 inch piece. So it would be, let me move this over a little bit to show you. It would be 1.5 inches wide in the Y direction. There's your Y-axis up and down. Your Z direction, or left and right, that's going to be, I'm sorry, your X direction, your X-axis left and right, that's going to be 3 inches, and then it's going to be a 1/2 inch deep. And if I look at the XY plane, it's kind of small over here, but there's your 1/2 inch depth there. Okay, and actually I have already set it up for you. You can see your X value there, your Y value, and your 0.5. Now your clamping point and your on your X and your Z, you can see those. If you click on it, you can see how it's highlighted now. So the CX is kind of your setback between the edge of the vise, the left side of the vise, and your workpiece. Well, what we do in the lab here is we make it a habit to make that nice and flush, your workpiece flush to that edge of the vise. So we're going to leave that at 0, and then 0.4 is the change in Z, or that how far, I'll click it here, how far your workpiece extends above the vise. I'm going to actually put that to 0.25, and that can actually be changed. Oh, we got an extra decimal in there. That can be changed actually before we start the actual machining process. So we're gonna go ahead and click OK, and you can see that that is unchanged. But just in case you want to see how to change the part to another size, just define unmachined part again. Let's say it was a 2 by 2 inch part, so it was a nice little square block. Click OK. You can see how that's going to change. So we're going to go back to that 1.5 by 3 inches long on the X value, 1.5 inches on the Y value, and there you have it. Okay, so now we're going to go through some of the tools. These are your toolbars over here. Your line tool and your circular tool here. Those are the two main ones we're going to use quite a bit, because that's what your drawings are going to be, a series of lines and circles. So the first thing I'm going to do is to zoom in here. If you hit this 1:1, that's the full picture, and you can see at the bottom it says full picture. Whenever I mouse over a button, it shows me down here in the description what that is. So that's kind of nice that way. If I click on the zoom feature and a little magnifying glass, and I click and drag, you can see that I zoom in to that area or that region I just selected. So that's a pretty good function there. Okay, if I want to go back to that full screen, I just do that. If I want to get really tight on a certain part, I can do that. Again, go back to the full picture. Okay, so for our purposes here, I'm going to zoom in to the block just a little bit closer. Oh, let me try that again. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to start with my line tool. So there's a couple different things you can do. Up here, when you notice when I select the different tools, there's a circle, different sub-tools come up, or subcategories. So I'm going to click on the line tool and click on the draw line. And when I draw a line, all I need to do is click a start point and an end point, and there it is. Now, if I want to draw another line, I have to click it again, click, click. And you can go at any angle, up angle, you can cross them, you can do anything you want with it, and there you have it. Okay, so if you want to delete, you can do a couple things. You can either click on it once like that, and then hit the delete button on your keyboard. Or if you want to do like a mass deletion of all this, you have to go up to the select drawing elements button right up here, click and drag over the parts, and you see they're all highlighted in light blue, and then you hit the delete button and they're gone. Okay, now your line is also, if you take a look at this, let's say we want to draw a perfectly straight line, so we don't want it crooked like this. I'm going to hit Control Z, by the way, to undo. That works for this. So I'm going to hit that. Let's say I wanted to make a straight horizontal line. Well, the easiest way I've seen to do it, you notice that you've got like these red crosshairs, which is very helpful. So if I click that starting point, you can see that as I move to the right, I can actually line those up in the little grid, the horizontal crosshairs. And if I click like that, see it's a little off right there, a little too high, a little too low, and then boop, it almost disappears when it's right on it. If I click there, now you can see I have a perfectly straight line. And you'll see that I don't have a straight line because it's got a little jagged edge on there if I do that. So that's a little tip for you. And then of course it works the same way with a vertical line, like this and like that. Okay, so I hit Control Z a couple times to get back to my original spot. Alright, now let's show you a polyline because that's very useful. The polyline is the second tool here, and what I'm going to do with the polyline is to click on one spot, and then I'm going to go over here, see if I can make a nice rectangle. Straight line, I'm going to click it again. I'm going to go straight up, line it up there so I'm nice and vertical. There's that. See if I can get, this is always the toughest part. Get nice and vertical with that one, and now this one, notice I'm making a continuous line. It's very difficult to match this up, so this is one of the most important things you're going to learn about creating polylines. You right mouse click and say search point. So that's a right mouse click, left mouse click on search point, and then I'm going to click on the edge of this line right here, left mouse click, and notice how it went ahead and connected it. And wasn't quite square. I have a jagged edge there, but that's alright. We get the idea. You can play around with that later. And you notice if I zoom in really good, that is absolutely connected there at that point, so it's looking good. And the reason that's important is because you, when you start the machining process, when you go through your CAM process and then go into machining, you're absolutely going to need those lines connected, or else you're going to run into major problems. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to show you. And let me get rid of this polyline here. I have to uncheck the polyline. Now, if I click on, I can click on individual pieces of it to delete it, or again, I can select my tool here, go ahead and delete it like that. Okay, now, when I go to, let's see here, Setup and Display. If you go to Setup and Display, you're going to see that there's a bunch of different options here. The one option that I wanted to show you was the grid. Now the grid is set up to 0.2 inches. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to make something, some kind of design here, which of course you're going to do, and I wanted to say, let's make sure I can see every half inch. So make like a half-inch grid. Let's change that to 0.5 and see what happens. Okay, there you see 0.5, and they're kind of small, but you can see them bigger over here. That's the 0.5 grid. So if I go back to the full screen there you go. So there's a half inch from this left edge, this x-axis, half inch, or there's 1 inch, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3 inches, and of course from your x-axis, half inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch. Now you can change that to anything you want. If you want to see every quarter of an inch, no problem. You go to Display, change that to 0.25, press OK, and now we've got every quarter of an inch. And of course that's very helpful because you can actually see what you're drawing. Okay, so those are the line tools. The rest of them I'll get into in another tutorial to split it up for you.